Hello viewers, my name is Michelle Rondeau. I'm a registered nurse and a mental health professional. If you're watching this, you may have seen me demonstrating with a cross that says Crucified by Blue Water Health. I was fired by Blue Water Health, and my termination became permanent on June 24th, just a year ago. They wouldn't let me go back to work because they thought the patients were not safe with me and because the relationship with Blue Water Health had been damaged. The crisis nurse works out of the emergency room and sees people who come into the emergency room who have mental health and psychiatric issues. No doubt you are aware of the mental health services needs in our community. In this introduction, I would like to tell you the very basic details of my story, the reasons for my going public, and my expectations in doing so. This is also a plea for your help. More details of my story will be told in a series of videos. But this is the basic story. I was the nurse on duty when a patient of mine became very out of control. She became combative, kicking, screaming, totally uncooperative and unreasonable, and she needed to be restrained by security officers. One of these officers had only recently returned to work and was on modified duties because what he had was an epididymitis, that's an infection in the testicle, and he was on his way to the bathroom at the time that another a security officer was escorting this woman to the bathroom. The patient bathroom was full, so the other officer on modified duties invited the patient to use the employee bathroom ahead of him. So as she was being escorted over to the bathroom, she broke away from the escorting officer and started running or heading toward low acuity ER, where there was a man being treated there for injuries that he had suffered at her hand. He had some pretty serious injuries. He was battered. He had, I believe his nose was broken, at least other, if not his nose, other facial bones. So the officers pursued her and were able to apprehend her and get her restrained. But she was like totally uncooperative and was extremely disruptive to the department, and also was a safety hazard for anyone around her. So they dragged her, because she wouldn't stand or walk, they safely dragged her out of the low acuity area and across the hall into the crisis interview room, where there is a stretcher and where she can be restrained. So as the officer who was on modified duties was attempting to lift her up, assist her up onto the stretcher, she bent her knee and she forcefully kicked him right in the genitals. Now remember, he's got this condition he's recovering from, plus he's got a full bladder. So he reached down, he grabbed her ankle and lifted it away from him. He's a pretty big guy. She wasn't all that big, but in so doing, hoisted her up, and she was in mid-air for approximately 1.5 seconds when the other officer got her torso up onto the stretcher, and then she was restrained on the stretcher. I was in the room. I had gone across to see if I could help. There was a camera. There's always a camera in the crisis interview room. The camera is mounted in a corner where the wall meets the ceiling. So the camera is not recording what I am seeing with my eyes. It's not mounted here. And I was focused on getting how I was going to restrain her feet. The restraints were lodged between the wall and the stretcher at the foot. And they're at closer to the head of the stretcher. So I learned afterwards that one of the officers had actually blocked a kick to my head or neck, which could have seriously injured me. injured officer was hospitalized for a week with the injuries that he had suffered, and then afterwards he was fired for patient abuse. To my knowledge, there was never any complaint from the patient, and there was no injury to her. I've seen people tasered for less. A while later, I was summoned on 2 different occasions to go before a panel in Human Resources, and I was told that I could expect that there might be disciplinary action taken. The hospital wouldn't tell me why I was being summoned, and on both of these occasions I was asked to come in on my own time. When I was unable to comply with their request because of other plans, they were unyielding in their request. I asked to have it arranged at a mutually convenient time, and I got a letter back saying, no, the meeting is as stands. Well, I couldn't go. So when I did eventually meet with the hospital at a time that was convenient for me, I wasn't paid for my time. The union rep, however, had been filled in on what I was being called into Human Resources for, and in my opinion, that biases the union rep. Now, notwithstanding that the hospital had allowed me to work 3 12-hour shifts from the time they had become aware of this event until the time that I was questioned, and notwithstanding that I told them that I hadn't seen this ankle lift, I was suspended, pending an investigation. A week later, I was called in again on my time off. I went in this time, it happened to be convenient for me. And the union rep, before I went in, said, Michelle, don't say anything. So I didn't. Well, I went in literally before a firing squad, and I was summarily fired for not having reported patient abuse. I had been an employee at Bluewater Health for 11 years. To this day, I don't believe a good case has been made for this having been abusive. And I was reported to the College of Nurses, and this is a mandate for the hospital whenever a nurse is fired for unprofessional conduct. About 6 months later, the arbitrator ruled that my termination was unjust, but the hospital wouldn't let me go back to work. I settled, and that was part of the settlement. And that will be explained in subsequent videos, and you'll have a better understanding of why I pretty much had no choice but to settle. It's understandable that many stories, and I dare say most, do not come to light because they're very complicated, lengthy, emotionally draining, and people get frustrated, fatigued, and muzzled. I felt compelled to put my story under the microscope of public scrutiny for a number of reasons. My sense of injustice, and my quest for truth, and my desire to inform other people so that they don't make the same mistakes as I. My sense of futility in attempting to appeal to the logic and common sense of people in authority who could make a difference. My quest for the truth regarding my own experience has gotten only unsatisfactory responses from Bluewater Health and others. All levels of management have refused to examine my case and the way I was treated, which I believe is reflective of how others before me have been treated and how others will be treated, unless common sense, fairness, and humanity are factored into the processes and teeth are put into their professed rhetoric. As one person said to me, Michelle, just because they write it doesn't mean they practice it. My desire and ability to help others, whereas others have the leverage of Bluewater Health paycheck, I am now effectively retired and no longer dependent on Bluewater Health for either a paycheck or a reference. People have contacted me to tell me about their experiences. Some of these were stories about people who were injured at work, who were ill, and the less than desirable way in which they've been treated. Another factor that prompted me to bring this to the attention of the public is the realization that this is a huge safety issue. It's a mental health issue at least. And from my conversations with people, there have been untoward repercussions because employees who have been treated badly have felt victimized and trapped. And unless changes are made, such things are going to continue to happen. This has a ripple effect on families or the families of the employees and on the people in the hospital. And that will be, or maybe you one day. And I'm happy to provide such examples. Not right now, but I can do it. If you will listen to my story, I think you will understand that entrapment is real. My desire to create a healthy workplace, thereby enabling the quality of patient care that is outlined in Blue Water Health's mission, vision, and value statements. You may have noticed in the June 11th issue of The Observer, in an article entitled, "Hospital Boasts More Engaged Employees." Of the 2/3 who responded, there was only a 62% engagement score. Is there any one of you who thinks that this is a boast-worthy score? By the way, I was present at the meeting when the nurses union lifted the censure from Blue Water Health, and it was not lifted because there was an improvement in management. To quote Joel Campbell from the article that I just mentioned, "We know that if employees are engaged, there is a correlating factor to patient satisfaction." Well, I couldn't agree more. What are my goals? Or what do I hope to accomplish by bringing this to the attention of the public? Well, I want to vindicate myself and clear my name, which has been sullied by Blue Water Health, tacitly by giving my former colleagues the impression that I did something horribly wrong, and overtly by reporting me to the College of Nurses, by reporting me to the patient in question, who as far as I know didn't file a complaint, and by informing our MPP, even after it had been determined by the arbitrator that I had been unjustly terminated, that I had engaged in conduct unbefitting of the professional standards of the College of Nursing and contrary to Blue Water Health's mission to provide exemplary care. I'd like to get the attention of the media to investigate this issue. That is, to explore it, analyze it, and get answers to my questions. I would dearly love to get the attention of Victor Malarek, W5. You hear me, Victor? I'd like to invite others to come forward if they have a story to tell, a like story. The only thing is that for their protection, they might have to do that anonymously, so I'm not quite sure how to provide a forum so that people can do this. So your suggestions would be welcome in that regard. I'd like to invite comments from the public regarding what they see as the problem, if you think there is a problem, and what suggestions you might have for correcting it. I'd like to get Blue Water Health to reform their managerial strategies so that employees can work in an authentically healthy, respectful environment that is sustainable. There are methodologies by which this can be accomplished and that are more effective and reliable than is an assessment of employees' engagement that is done every year by an outside organization. I'm sorry, every other year. That's every 2 years. I'd like to educate the employees who remain at Blue Water Health and other people in Ontario, because I think it's rare that anyone is informed about what happens. People just disappear from the workplace and they're not heard from again. In my case, for example, I was just walked out and nothing was said to my coworkers. After 11 years, did you think they might notice that I was missing, or that they might miss me, or wonder what's happened? And then, I can understand they might be concerned to approach me because, they're thinking, wow, she must have done something awful. So I would also like to help to raise employees' rating of engagement, investment, or workplace satisfaction to a score that is laudable. What do you think would be a satisfactory score? Consider how many plane crashes there would be with a 99% score of satisfactory flights, or safe flights. I'd like to invite politicians to examine these issues and call them particularly to the attention of the Minister of Health and to the Minister of Labor. If Blue Water Health boasts an engagement score of 62%, with only 2/3 of the employees voting, and if that score is 6% above the Ontario hospital average, I think that's pretty sad, and something needs to be done to improve that score. I'd like the Ministry of Labor and whoever is responsible for labor law to clarify what is meant by swift justice. I believe that any reasonable person, would think that almost 2 years in negotiations is unreasonable for a matter that could have and should have been clarified and rectified within 30 minutes. I know in my case I asked, I'll call him N in Human Resources, why couldn't my boss have just talked to me? And he said, we don't do things that way. I would like the law regarding mitigation of losses to be examined. It defies common sense, well, in my opinion. It re-victimizes victims, and it needs to be changed. Employees pay union dues and deserve to be represented according to their expectations. They need to be aware that their representation might be at cross purposes. The information I provide herein will help them to make more informed decisions should they ever need to file a grievance. There are 3 unions at the hospital. Does that need to change? The members of the nurses' union are primarily women. Is this a relevant factor in any way? I would like to suggest that the College of Nurses expand its mandate to include the abuse of nurses, one against the other, particularly since there has been a plethora of research done on lateral and or horizontal violence. And did you know that of all the professions, bullying takes place much more often in the nursing profession than in any other, usually nurse to nurse. Did I mention the college has policies on policies to protect patients from nurses, nurses from patients, but not nurses from nurses. I would like to invite discussions from other professionals, for example, psychologists, on why people comply even when they object, or why they don't speak up. This would likely involve discussions about mob or herd mentality and or about Stanley Milgram's obedience studies, if you ever want to look those up for yourself. Now, I'd like to share with you some comments that people have sent to me in writing. So this is not me talking. These comments come from other people. Okay, number 1. Do they care how many lives have been ruined? I had to go to a food bank until EI started. It put me into a severe depression that I've never had in my life. I didn't even want to live, but because of friend support, I've come out of it and still struggle to find another job. Life will never be the same. To be treated so bad after 23 years of total dedication is disgusting. Another one. It seems truly unbelievable, especially for one person to have so much clout. Another. I can't imagine how people can be so cruel and feel okay about it. It's beyond my comprehension. Another. I was terminated in a very inhumane manner. I am depressed and struggling to find other employment. My career and credibility have been ruined with one quick, bold decision made by a manager who has gained compliance through intimidation. Staff have been heard to say, I don't want to get fired like so-and-so did. Staff become so stressed that they cry and call in sick because they cannot deal with the current situation there. I'm hopeful things will change for them. I gave it all I had every shift, very often staying late without pay. My patients appreciated my care. May there be justice. Another. Often people rise to their highest level of incompetence. Another. This type of event just sucks the life out of you. I have no more positive thinking left in me. I feel sorry now for all the others this will happen to down the road. Another. My daughter works at Blue Water Health and has anxiety attacks on her day off as she is afraid of termination when she returns. Another. I don't know if anyone ever told you about one of my mandatory situations. Well, I was working a 12-hour night shift, 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. About 9 p.m. I got a call from my manager. She said, "We have a mandatory meeting in the morning at 10 o'clock in Human Resources. The union will be there." And I said, "Well, that's going to be very difficult for me to be alert because I will have been up since 5 p.m. And she said I had to get ready for work at 7 p.m. And I live out of town. I don't know if I'll be safe to drive home. That's a total of 17 hours without sleep." And she said, "The meeting's at 10 a.m. to talk to your union in the morning." This was on a Sunday night. The meeting was on Monday. That means that the manager, the union, and Human Resources knew about this on Friday. And so no one told me about it ahead of time. Yes, I went. And then this employee goes on to describe a suspension and followed by a termination. Another one. I remember 2 employees crying one time because our manager told them in front of other staff, "You know, they're hiring at Subway." Another one. The only way to alert and inform the community is through letters to the editor. There may have been many times I've wanted to share information with the community, or no, so there have been many times, but I knew to do so would be to the detriment of my job. You, on the other hand, have nothing to lose, so I say, go for it. Another. I sincerely suggest that the whole story be written as a novel. The whole story should be told. Another. I think the nurses have to censure the hospital again. It should never have been voted back in. Another. Case in point. Nurse works 14 hours straight with no help, no lunch or dinner, or coffee break in a very stressful and dangerous environment. Goes home exhausted and returns next day for her 12-hour shift. Hopefully it's only 12 hours. And the manager's response is, "Who authorized the overtime?" There is not an ounce of developing, enabling, educating, engaging, and certainly not recognizing in the heart or brain of an individual like that. There is hardly an employee at Blue Water Health who has not encountered this level of disrespect and disregard on their person. I am incensed by this. Another. At arbitration, somebody who else at arbitration, they pay management and lawyers and have a lovely lunch. By the way, I will have to pay for my own while they barter with my life and my career. Another one. Staff were hesitant to fill out those independently, quote, independently, unquote, contracted surveys, honestly, as there was a barcode on them. Accuracy of those employee satisfaction surveys are BS. Another one. My concern is that Bob Bailey lacks any authority to deal effectively with this matter. So who does? Okay, now I'm going to stop there, but you get the idea. And now these are also comments from other employees, but they're words that have encouraged me and motivated me. One employee writes, "Michelle, I've been in your corner since the beginning. The bullying on," and she mentions a particular unit in the hospital, "was horrible too. So proud of you for doing what so many of us would like to do." Another one writes, "I'm crying uncontrollably. I feel like some days there is no hope, but this has given me some. God bless you, Michelle, and all the supporters." And now my words to you. Relive this as I write it all. I would like to thank all of you who have been supportive of me through this ordeal. In particular, I'm most appreciative of the letters of support that I have received from nurses and doctors with whom I work. For although you did not know me well personally, you are in the best position to be aware of my professional conduct. And for those of you who do know me personally, know that I'm very grateful to you for your letters of support of my character. And now I'm going to end this video by reading you a letter that was sent to me from a supportive coworker. She writes, "Hi Michelle, I heard something on TV this morning. It was Stuart McLean, a Canadian author who has a new book out. One of the short stories in it is called Mr. Fisher, Who Was a Teacher. He went into his history classroom and started seriously reaming out one of the poorer students in front of the whole class. He went on a tirade for quite a long time, criticizing the student, and then he stopped. He turned and he said to the rest of the class, 'You just watched me be brutal,' or something like that, to his student, and you did nothing to stop it. Why didn't you? Because you are afraid of me and you are afraid of authority. Now open your books. Today we're going to talk about World War II and Adolf Hitler." Wow. When I heard this, I thought you needed to use this in some of your discussions because it fits. And she goes on to, and she says, "By the way, all of his stories are true, including that of Mr. Fisher." So, viewers, if you will listen to all the videos I made, there's a lot more detail, and I would be interested to learn what you think. Do you think I was the abuser or was I the abused? Would you agree with the College of Nurses that one is one too many? Keep in mind, all of my supervisors, my managers, all the way up to the CEO are all nurses. I invite your analyses, your comments, and your suggestions. And I thank you so much for your time and attention.